Hey guys, this is Mitch with the Void Podcast again, coming to you with another truck talk video. As our last video indicated, Dave, our co-host, he's out sick right now. He's actually got COVID. And so to get you guys some content this week, I've got Austin with me riding around doing some plumbing videos for our plumbing company. And I decided we would just go ahead and shoot a couple of shorter podcast episodes for you here in the work truck. So we're in between jobs. We're driving from one job to another, and so we figured we would just give you guys some really good content while we're on the way. What I wanted to talk with you guys about on this show is criticism, and I want to talk with you about how we criticize other people and how we allow others' criticism of us to affect us. I was at church a couple of weeks ago, and the pastor said something to me that has just stuck with me for a really long time. And I find so many cases where this applies to. And what the pastor said was, we as humans have a really good job, or have a really good ability of, we take a fault of somebody else's and we talk about it in a way to make it a much bigger deal than it actually is, and then we take a fault of our own and we hide it behind theirs. So we talk up their problem as if it's really big, so that we can hide ours behind theirs, and hopefully nobody will see our problems at that point. And that hit me like a ton of bricks that day, and it really, on a daily basis, I've seen instances where people are doing that. And it can come off in a couple of different forms. Sometimes it can come off like gaslighting a little bit, where we're blowing up a small issue of somebody else's so that we can take the heat off of us, and we'll have people do it to us too. I've had people take just in the last few weeks, I've had somebody take what is a very minor issue in regards to myself and my family and try to blow it up like it's this giant problem. But really, the only reason they were doing it was so that they could hide their problem underneath ours. And so it goes both ways, and I'm guilty of doing this as well. So one of the easiest ways to overcome any of that is that if you're in a position to give criticism to somebody or to cast judgment about somebody's actions or their behavior, before you say a word, audit yourself first. Look at yourself and identify, and be honest with yourself. Identify if you're guilty of that same behavior. Identify if you're guilty of doing that same thing for you. And if you are, then there's no point to vocalize anything to that person, because you're guilty of the same behavior, and you're going to get much more benefit and much more mileage out of correcting that behavior internally and correcting it for yourself than you would ever get by trying to correct that behavior in somebody else. Keep in mind, correcting somebody else's behavior is incredibly difficult to do. And the older that person is, the more difficult it is. A lot of listeners to this show, including myself, are parents. And getting our children to correct behaviors is not the easiest thing in the world. But thankfully, because of our parental roles, we have that ability, right? There's just a normalized standard there that children listen to their parents. And children emulate their parents, and children want to make their parents happy, right? So we have all of that. However, going from similar-aged adult to another similar-aged adult, it is very difficult to get somebody else to change their behavior. So you're going to get a lot more mileage and a lot more benefit by recognizing if you present those same behaviors yourself. And if you do, look at how you would correct those issues and then work on that and correct those issues. And when you do that, you are going to see so much more benefit from that. You're going to see more benefit just with how at peace you are with yourself, but you're also going to see benefit from improved relationships that you have with other people. Your conversations are going to go a lot more honest and candid with other people. They're going to go a lot smoother with other people the moment you're in a position where if you're judging anybody, you're judging yourself rather than judging them. So I'm trying to think on the fly here of like a realistic example. I don't want to go into personal details about like how this occurred with me, but let's say like parenting. For those of us with kids, we've all done this. We've all questioned the parenting level of our kids' friends, right? We have our kids will have a friend over, and that friend behaves in a certain way, and the easy go-to there is the easy go-to is to blame that kid's poor behavior on their parents and start judging their parents for the way their kid acts. Well, anybody with, preteen and teenage kids would realize that preteens and teenage kids, sometimes they're just stupid. Their decision-making abilities are just out of whack sometimes, and sometimes they just flat make poor decisions. Their parents could be the most on top of things that they can be, and they can be the best parents in the world, but you still have a kid that just says something stupid or does something stupid. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with their parents, but us as other parents, our immediate go-to is we start judging that child's, our kids' friends' parents, and we start questioning their parenting skills. When really what we should be doing in that case is we recognize that, okay, sometimes kids are just stupid, but are we parenting our children in a way that would remove anyone else's ability to judge us in a negative light? And my wife and I will have conversations like that a lot. Our kids are pretty wild and crazy, and I love that. I wouldn't take it any other way. But if our kid goes out and makes a boneheaded move or whatever, my wife and I will have a verbal conversation with, how do we need to handle this, and how would other parents respect our parenting decisions regarding this and regarding how we handled it. And it's not to say that we need other parents' approval or anything else, but we're flipping the judgment around back on us, and we're auditing ourselves and trying to make sure that we are behaving in a way to where we could be judge-free. And again, you're never going to convince another parent to change their own parenting style, right? That's how they parent. That's their job, and that's their right to do so, and they can parent however they want to parent, and that's fine. So if we go into that scenario and we're constantly looking at judging other parents and putting down other parents and scolding other parents or whatever the case may be, we're going to get nowhere with that. Whereas if we audit ourselves and turn that back around and look at ways to improve our parenting skills and our communication skills, we're going to see so much more benefit from that audit than we would from the judgment of somebody else. So just a really good tip or a trick for you to do that. And you can do this in all levels, right? If you have an interaction with a customer that does not go smoothly, rather than blaming it on a bad customer, audit yourself and make sure that your performance was top-notch. Another very realistic example. This happened in our business literally just within the last few days. We had a plumber go to somebody's home, and the plumber typically does amazing work. And we had a plumber go to somebody's home, and this customer communicated back to us that they had a couple of concerns, and it was really about 5 concerns that they had. And the concerns didn't really line up with the typical behavior of our plumber. And so I went into it with an open mind, but I also went into it ready to go to bat for my plumber. He's my guy. He does great work all the time. And so I had reason to believe that he had done great work again. And what ended up happening is the more I talked with this customer, the more I understood that, they were right. And our guy dropped the ball. And nobody's perfect. We all drop the ball from time to time. We all have bad days. We all miss the target from time to time. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's stuff going on at home. Whatever the case may be, but sometimes we just aren't behaving the way that we are known to normally behave. And so the longer I got to talking with this customer, the more I realized this customer was dead on in their concerns. And so we rectified all the concerns, and everything is great. And it gave me an opportunity to talk with our guy and everything else. But, that was another opportunity right there where I'm able to turn that audit back on our company and my employees' performance before I just went in and started judging this customer. If I would have just gone in and accused this customer of just, they're saying things like, well, they're just impossible to please, or whatever the case may be, that would have been the wrong thing to do, and I would have been wrong to do it because the customer was not wrong. Their concerns were legitimate. So that's another realistic example of where there's tons of value in turning that audit back on yourself first before you cast judgment on somebody else. So I wanted to, again, come to you guys this week here in the truck. We're kind of doing these podcasts on the fly as David is out with COVID. So if you guys saw value in this episode, if you're listening on YouTube, please do us a favor and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if you guys could give us a 5-star review, we would really, really appreciate it. That helps. Your reviews help our podcast show up in the suggested podcasts for other listeners, so we can help get this message out to other people who may need it. So if you guys have any questions or any follow-up questions to anything we talked about, or if you have any comments about what we talked about today, feel free to email us at askmitch@mitchsmedley.com, and we can get those emails and reply to you. And if you've got general business questions, we can reply to those. And as we do those, if your questions are good enough and maybe it's a question we hadn't been asked before, we'll actually we'll bring it up in a Q&A show and actually talk about your questions on the show. So again, thanks for working with us as we're kind of going through these on the fly with Dave being out sick. So hopefully he gets to feeling better soon and we can get back in our normal studio and keep cranking these things out. So until next time, guys, we will see you later.